The state of Utah is not known for producing 5-star talent. The last time the state produced a consensus 5-star recruit was 2002 when Haloi Ngata was rising up the ranks. You had to flash forward 18 years before the next generational prospect would have his rise in Utah. That player was Noah Sewell. You guys probably are familiar with his brother Penei Sewell, who was a top 10 pick with the Lions, but you probably didn't know he had two other brothers that also played college football, and Sewell was groomed to be a big-time player from the very beginning. He was a freshman All-American, a 5-star recruit, and was at one point a projected first round or even top 10 pick. He was the next great linebacker prospect going into the NFL, but unfortunately, his stock dropped off. He ended up falling to the later rounds in this year's draft, and in today's video, I want to revisit the insane rise of Noah, talk about his Oregon career, why he fell in the draft, and why he still has so much potential in the league. But before we get started, be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new to the channel and love college football content, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now, let's get started and talk about what happened to Noah Sewell. Going back in time, Noah was destined to be great just because of his family tree. He was the youngest of 4 football players in the house, and his brother Penei ended up playing for Oregon and was a top 10 pick for Detroit. His older brothers played at both Nevada and Utah, and 4 Division I players in a row is pretty insane, and I don't think this story is talked about enough. He said, quote, "This was no coincidence. Football is what we do. It's what we're good at, and it's what my father started coaching all of us to do at a young age, and we all just love it." Noah's life started under humble circumstances as he grew up in American Samoa. His father Gabriel coached football and involved Noah in that from a young age and made him a team manager. Noah said, quote, "I've been around football since I can remember. I was always around my dad coaching and my brothers, so yeah, it's always been a big part of my life." His mother Arlene worked at the college on the island, and Gabriel coached football and taught at the local high school. They raised their 4 sons and daughter in a 1-bedroom house, and dreams are supposed to be big. They moved to St. George in Utah, and all of them would start out playing for Desert Hills High School. As you guys probably could imagine, Noah's upbringing was challenged by his 3 older brothers. Ultimately, this would reap huge rewards for him, and at times, many thought he was the best of the bunch. His dad said, quote, "I'd imagine in every family there's a pecking order, so Noah caught his fair share of lickings and just had to take them. He was everyone's gopher growing up, but I think that obviously helped him." Trying to play against his older brother Penei proved to be an extreme challenge for him, but it would prove to be beneficial in his development. Noah was presented with his first college football scholarship when he was in only 7th grade, with Southern Utah being the first program to extend an offer. Just over a year later, Hawaii would come his way, and then pretty much every program in the nation was calling their number. Noah would end up playing as a sophomore for Desert Hills before transferring to Orem High School after his mother took a job to work at BYU. Orem's head coach was more than happy to have Noah on the roster and made plenty of room for him to come in and do his thing. Apparently Noah was so good, he could have played anywhere on the field. His coach said, quote, "I really do believe he could play all 11 positions on both sides of the football. He's that athletic." Once Penei left Orem, that is when Noah became arguably the most hyped up recruit in Utah history and would always be on FaceTime with college coaches. He was still extremely humble though, as despite being the most hyped up recruit in nearly 20 years, if you talked to him, you wouldn't know that was even happening. He was truly must-see TV in Utah, and one beat writer said, quote, "Just a few minutes watching him perform on the gridiron provides ample evidence as to why the Orem star is unlike any recruit this state has ever produced." Despite missing 5 games during his senior year, he made his presence known as he had 95 tackles and 4 sacks, while also rushing for 752 yards and 13 touchdowns. Because of that, he was listed as a 5-star recruit, but that really wasn't a big deal to him. He said, quote, "I always want to prove myself the best I can, so being out there was really tough for me. I wanted to prove whatever doubters I had wrong and prove that I deserved that 5th star, but most of all, it was for my team and teammates." Eventually, when it came to recruiting, his final 8 consisted of Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Florida, LSU, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. That's pretty standard for a big-time recruit. But where on earth was Noah going to go? He didn't know, but he had an idea. He said, quote, "I've been blessed to have great role models. Just watching all my brothers go through the process has really helped, and obviously my dad has helped a ton. I wouldn't be the player I am today without all of them." He eventually chose to follow his brother to Oregon over 34 other offers and joined the Ducks after leading Orem to their 3rd straight state championship. Noah was a huge deal and a major get for Mario Cristobal's plan at Oregon, and before Justin Flo committed there, Sewell was the highest rated linebacker in program history. What did scouts have to say? Well, they were high on him. They said, quote, Sewell was the very definition of a freak athlete, capable of playing just about anywhere on the field of play, and although he excelled at playing both linebacker and running back, he's just one of 2 consensus 5-star football recruits the state of Utah has ever produced. He would have to play one position at Oregon, and what would he end up choosing? He said, quote, "I love linebacker and I love defense. I love being able to hit people and not get in trouble for it." That probably put a smile on Ducks fans' faces, and so did his recruiting ranking. 24/7 Sports compared him to former LSU star Devin White, and listed him as a 5-star recruit, the number 2 inside linebacker, and the 19th best player in the class of 2020. So, how would the Phenom end up doing at Oregon? When Sewell arrived at Oregon, he had a ridiculous amount of hype. Because of everything going on in the world, his season would be somewhat delayed and shortened, but he still had a pretty big impact. In his 4th game against Oregon State, he finished with a career-high 10 tackles, and had a sack and a forced fumble in a 3-point victory over UCLA. He then had 8 tackles against Cal, and 6 tackles in their win over number 13 USC in the Pac-12 championship game. He also helped them in their bowl game against Iowa State, and finished his freshman campaign with 44 tackles, 2 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. He ended up finishing the season tied for the team in tackles, and was named the Pac-12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. He was also named a Freshman All-American, and in 2021 would become even better. He helped them beat both Fresno State and Ohio State in Week 1 and Week 2, before he had 24 tackles in 2 games against Stony Brook and Arizona. He continued to dominate from there, as he'd help Oregon win 5 of their next 6 games. He had 12 tackles against Cal, 10 against Washington, and then 10 in a loss to Utah. That Utah game ended up being brutal, but they would beat Oregon State and get back to the Pac-12 championship for a rematch. They ended up losing again, but Sewell had his first career interception in that game, and then once again put on a nice performance in the Alamo Bowl. He finished the 2021 campaign with 114 tackles, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a pick. Because of that, he had a ridiculous amount of hype going into 2022. He was a projected first-round pick for the 2023 NFL Draft, and some mock drafts had him as high as the bottom of the top 10. He was on every preseason watch list, and was also on every preseason All-American list. Justin Flo said, quote, "On and off the field, Noah brings it." So how did he end up doing in 2022? Well, honestly, everything declined. He didn't even break 10 tackles once, only had 1.5 sacks, and just struggled to have that same impact he had in years prior. Maybe it was a change in scheme, maybe it was an injury, or maybe there was some sort of other factor that went on. But either way, Noah only finished with 55 tackles, and it honestly was pretty disappointing. I mean, he played in far less games in 2020 and almost had the same numbers. He still declared for the 2023 NFL Draft, and in 3 years, he finished with 218 career tackles, 20.5 TFLs, and 7.5 sacks. He said, quote, "My family came to the US more than 10 years ago to follow a dream, and today I'm following a personal dream I've had since I was a child. I've watched my 3 older brothers play professionally, and now it's my turn. After 3 memorable years at Oregon, I'm officially declaring." According to NFL Mock Database, in early December, he was as highly ranked as the 29th best prospect. From there, though, he continued to go down week by week, eventually ending up projected to go 114th overall. This was somewhat disappointing, and what did the scouts have to say? They said, quote, "He's a hard-hitting, pass-rushing linebacker, and he's elite when asked to play between the tackles. However, he struggles in pass coverage and lacks the range to play in space required in modern defenses. At Oregon, he wasn't asked to cover defenders as much on passing plays, and right now looks like a 2-down linebacker." He ended up getting selected with the 148th overall pick in the 5th round by the Bears, and in my eyes, this is a steal. How does he fit with the Bears? I don't know too much about them, but one Chicago beat writer said, quote, "With Tremaine Edmonds in the middle and TJ Edwards at the will spot, Noah Sewell will line up in the Sam spot and compete with Jack Sanborn." Again, I'm not super familiar with the Bears, but it does seem like there is a world in which Sewell can see the field pretty early on. In terms of his long-term outlook, I think he's one of those guys that'll stick around in the league for a couple of years and play for multiple teams. As the scout said, he was never really able to develop much when it came to pass coverage, as he probably didn't really need to do in high school, and at minimum was just so much more athletic than those other players, and now everything has caught up to him. He truly was dominant in high school and was pretty good at Oregon, but the reason his stock fell was because he was too one-dimensional. But Sewell could still end up proving everybody wrong, and I definitely wouldn't bank on him being out of the league anytime soon. His whole life he has worked for this, and he has a lot to live up to, so I expect Noah to prove everyone wrong and be a steal in this year's draft. For now though, his stock ended up falling, and this was somewhat unfortunate to see. I do hope you guys did enjoy today's video though, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like. Let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon. But until next time, peace.